And okay, hi, my name is Roger Burnett, and on behalf of the West Washtenaw Business Association, I would like to welcome you to March's Wild Wednesday webinar. And courtesy of the Programs Committee, of which I am the chair, we are actively searching for topics of interest amongst the membership. So if there are things that you would like to learn more about, please feel free to reach out to me at Roger@Social Good Promotions with what it is that you would like to be educated upon. And I and the remainder of your board of directors will find someone or some people to be able to speak to you on that specific topic. And in keeping with our mission to educate and inform the membership, we are doing a number of different pieces of programming in addition to the Wild Wednesday webinar, one of which is my friend Jason Tracy, who is doing features on members of the organization in his vehicle called Entrepreneur Uncaged. Don't know if you've had an opportunity to look at the last two. We had Jason Hill from J2IT, who was a recent WWBA new member who was featured. And then prior to that, Jason spoke with Kevin Barclay from Orthopedic Rehab Specialists, who talked about why it's important to sometimes do things out of your comfort zone, like opening a new office just because you have an employee who deserves one. It's really great.
Amazing story.
Check those out. And we'll continue to feature members of the association. So if you are interested in having a feature, please by all means reach out to my friend Jason, who also is here to talk to us about our April Wild Wednesday webinar. As part of each of these events, what we like to do is tease out a little bit about what you can expect in the coming month. So on the April Wild Wednesday webinar, we're going to turn this bad boy over to Jason. So Jason, why don't you talk a little bit about what you're going to speak about?
So first, real quick, going back to Entrepreneur Uncaged, I recently had a member reach out that has been following the videos, and he has a tremendous amount of value he's bringing to the group. He is in payroll and accounting and that piece. He owns a company called Payroll Vault. His name's James Lippins, and he's going to do a presentation that we're going to really hype up because it brings a lot of value that people don't know, that there's actually a really big tax credit that you can claim when you have employees, including if you're a single self-employed company that is giving people a lot of money back on their taxes. And he's going to do a really cool presentation to educate the group on that. And I would not miss that. I know I'm really on the edge of my seat to know what kind of money I can get back. So that's a huge one. I don't have a date for it yet. We are still planning, but it will be within end of March, beginning of April. So, and then kicking off into April and in doing the Wild Wednesday webinar, you know, between members that I've talked to in the WWBA, along with the clients that I work with, there are a lot of common themes that people have worries about going through the economy, the COVID economy, selling in the COVID economy, and how do you target your client? How do you find specialized groups of clients? How do you get your message out there? How do you pull in new clients when you're selling through this thing, right? You're selling through this screen, or a lot of your lead opportunities, a lot of the networking events and a lot of the live events that you would normally go to, or you set up a community table where you normally pull in leads. Those things don't exist anymore. How are you growing your business? And how are you niching down? This is a huge one. There are riches in the niches. I don't know if you've ever heard this before, Roger, but there are riches in the niches. And people are so afraid that if I can serve everybody, how do I market to everybody? But they're so afraid to give up on everybody. And so they stick with this everybody, and it causes a huge problem because how do I pull in new groups of people when everybody's my client? It's okay, and it's actually beneficial to niche down. And what we're going to go through is that process along with telling your sales story in order to land new clients. And as a kicker, anybody that does register for this event will get the workbook. So this is going to be an interactive experience. If we get people in, you're literally going to be able to put together your customized process to be able to go leave and put it in place and go land new clients right now.
Nice. I've been reminded of the whole notion of if you send an email to everyone, you've actually sent an email to no one.
To no one.
That's exactly the same thing that you're talking about there, Jason. So we're looking forward to seeing that one. That's going to be a lot of fun. But with no further ado, let me introduce this month's presentation, The Benefits of Playing Your Way to Well-Being in the Workplace. The dynamic duo here joining us today, Lisa and Libby, energize their audience to empower them to move from where they are to someplace better, someplace they didn't think they could get to. During this engagement, attendees will utilize the Pillars of Play framework to learn how to better manage their well-being without it feeling like extra work. Lisa and Libby's own stories of burnout and exhaustion, which I got to hear, led them to learn how to formulate simple well-being practices into their lives while utilizing play as their key ingredient. You're going to learn simple tools to positively impact your personal and professional life and make you feel energized and empowered to live with more joy and, of course, a sense of playfulness. These two are the co-founders of BluWave Wellbeing, and together they have 20 plus years of experience leading human resources and corporate communication teams where they helped organizations triple in revenue and impact, triple, not double. After years of grinding, they reached the point of physical and mental exhaustion and burnout in their careers, which impacted their well-being. Their journeys to well-being led them to rediscover the childlike wonder of playfulness to help them heal, and as they began to live with a more playful spirit, they both began to thrive, and lo and behold, that awesome BluWave Wellbeing logo was born. The professional development company makes well-being achievable for everyone and is built on the science of play. They teach their Pillars of Play framework, which is built on science and helps individuals learn habits that they can do in 5 minutes or less, not 6 minutes, 5 minutes. Lisa and Libby have worked with organizations such as Vital Proteins, Dow, DuPont, Joseph Ribkoff, and countless chambers of commerce. Lisa, Libby, thanks so much for joining us today. We're really looking forward to this.
Well, what a beautiful introduction. We loved it. I love the thing about the dynamic duo, Lisa and Libby, because yes, we bring energy to everything that we do. So we are so excited to be here today to really help you guys play your way to well-being. So as Libby's pulling up the slides to get us started, what we're going to be diving into today is exactly what you just described, which is super important and super awesome. So first off, I just want to say if you are here today, or if you are watching this recording, just give yourself a pat on the back right now for showing up, because that's the biggest step that people need to take in order to not only capitalize on their well-being, but also to help their coworkers, their employers, and help their personal and professional life. So we know that last year has been insanely crazy. People are going through burnout, exhaustion, feeling scared, feeling just like kind of stuck in many areas. But the thing is a lot of people were feeling this way before COVID. So now we have this additional layer of anxiety. And so well-being now is more important than ever. And so we're excited to really dive into today's topic of well-being, teach you guys about our pillars of play. And also everybody's going to be walking away with a tool that you can implement directly into your lives. So Libby, if you take us to the next slide, really, I just wanted to do a quick introduction. Roger did a fantastic job of that, so I don't have too much more to say, but just wanted to get some information up so that you guys can follow us, but also just to share a little bit more about our story. So Roger alluded to it a little bit that Libby and I both came from, startups in corporate world where we were burnout and exhausted. And my personal story is that I found myself on bed rest. So I literally was on bed rest for a complete week because I was just completely exhausted. I did not practice any of the tools that we teach. And so that's where it really happened for me, is that I needed to really take that charge on my well-being. And so everything that Libby and I teach, we actually do. So when people say like, you need to practice what you preach, well, we do. We are very big on it because guess what? There are tools that you can do in 5 minutes or less, like Roger said. And so that's so important for us because we want to make well-being achievable for any individual that we work with. And we utilize the science of play for that because science is continuing to showcase all of these great stats and studies with play, which Libby will get into in a little bit. So that's just an introduction of us. So we want to dive into this next slide. And just for 1 second, Nope, you're good. Yep, that's perfect. So what I just want you to think for 1 second here is like, what were your challenges this last year? And just pause and reflect here for a second. Like, what have you been struggling with? What challenges have you had both personally and professionally? And many of us, we've continued to hear is just, Zoom fatigue or exhaustion or trying to figure out this work-life balance, but also trying to manage the day-to-day life. And I'm going to validate if you are shaking your head, yes, I felt those things. I'm going to validate that your feelings are just like a lot of other individuals. So you are not alone into what you're feeling. And so really what we want to help you guys do is incorporate well-being tactics into your life that help you have a little bit more of a balance so that when things come up, such as, man, I'm exhausted, or I'm running from meeting to meeting, how do I manage my own well-being, that you have these tools to really help you. And so more than ever, we need to take time for relief, for breaks, and to really break up these moments in our lives in order for ourselves to thrive and be resilient in times of change, such as what we're going through right now. So Libby, if you go to the next slide, again, I just want you guys to reflect here for a second. And if you're on the call, you feel free to put in the chat box, but I want you to share some words that you would use to describe how you have felt so far in 2021. So we are in month 3 of 2021. We just went through a crazy year. And so share with us what you're kind of feeling right now. What words would you describe? Some people are sharing impatient. Please feel free to share any more. So some other things that we've continued to hear is people are feeling hopeful, feeling overwhelmed. We heard, past things, feeling excited that we're moving forward with getting out of this. Yes, overwhelm seems to continue to be the word. And that's what we're hearing a lot. And that's important for us to acknowledge that this is what we're feeling, because that's the biggest step too, is like being aware of what we're feeling in order to make changes. And the cool thing about well-being is that the tools are so important and that well-being is continuing to grow, but it's also important for you guys to understand that there's ups and flows when it comes to well-being. You're not going to be perfect all the time in one area. There's going to be different areas of well-being that maybe you're doing really well with your health in one piece, but then the next day it's around relationships that you're focusing on. So just know that, like, anytime you're saying, man, I have all these tools, but I'm still struggling, that's okay. But we want to teach you to struggle well. So no one's perfect when it comes to well-being, but it's making sure that you're being aware that, okay, I'm struggling, but what do I need to do to get out of it? And that's a big piece when it comes to well-being and taking care of yourself. So Libby, if you show us the state of well-being, it's really important for us to understand what's going on right now. And these were published in May of 2020. So if you think about it, that was only like 2 months after many places had shut down, but people were, psychological safety was pretty low. People were increasing levels of struggle, and people did not feel like they could confidently care for their well-being. So it's very important that we have just these stats for your guys' knowledge to understand that this is where the state is right now. And this was in May of 2020. So we haven't even seen a lot of the stats that are coming out now of how about how well-being and how COVID has impacted individuals. But I bet we can all imagine that it's very important, and it's so important for us to not only take care of ourselves but for companies to understand how important it is to take care of their employees as well when it comes to well-being. So to get us started, Miss Libby is amazing at doing this. So she's going to just kind of like set the tone, set the intention with us today with a breathing exercise. So I'm going to hand it over to her.
Hello, everyone. I am the other half of the dynamic duo. It's so nice to be with you all today. As Lisa said, we're just going to center and ground ourselves to make sure that our awareness is fully present in the now, in this moment right now on this presentation, not thinking about the future or something that happened maybe leading up to this time. We just want you to be fully here because this is time for you to experience a moment of self-care. So let's go ahead wherever you're at. Just go ahead. If you're sitting at a desk, maybe push yourself back just a little bit. Letting your feet fall comfortably on the floor, letting your arms just kind of fall onto your lap in whatever way is the most comfortable for you. And then if you feel comfortable to do so, go ahead and close your eyes. And then let's just start by taking a few long, deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. And taking another really long, deep inhale in through the nose and letting the belly expand out. And then exhaling. And now, without trying to control or to concentrate on the breath, you're just simply observing the breath as it naturally flows in and flows out. Again, you're just patiently noticing, not trying to control. You might notice that your breath is still entering and exiting at a very fast rhythm, and that's okay. Or you might notice how calm you are in this moment. So keeping your awareness on the breath, and whenever you notice that your attention has drifted away from the breath to maybe other thoughts or sensations or noises in the environment, just bringing your attention back to the breath. And allowing yourself with each inhale and exhale to relax more deeply into this present moment. And then taking another moment to set an intention for yourself today. Maybe it's an intention that you want to be fully present for this session together. Maybe you want to learn something new. Maybe there's a specific emotion or feeling you want to have. Whatever that is for you, just taking a moment to silently set an intention for yourself. Then whenever you're ready, go ahead and take a deep breath in and exhale out. Bring your awareness back into the room. You can go ahead and open your eyes.
Oh, that's my favorite. You did such a good job on that. If you guys want to put in the chat box kind of how that made you feel. So I want to talk a little bit about why breathing is so important. And so we actually do a whole section on intention setting, but one thing that's just kind of like a sneak peek at it, but it's so important for us to take moments in our lives when we have a lot of anxiety or we're, just needing to set an intention before a meeting to really just like take those deep breaths in and deep breaths out and set that intention that we want. And sometimes it's really great to do that in the morning. Sometimes that's great to do, before we go to bed or just throughout the day, because I don't know about you guys, but sometimes it's go, 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 go. And then you have a break and it's like, what do I do? And you just like, it all hits you. And so adding those breathing moments throughout your day actually will really help you a lot with your well-being and your overall health. And so Libby, if you take us to the next slide, I want to dive into a little bit more about well-being. So I have a few more things that I want to chat on, because a lot of times people don't understand, well, what is well-being? I know the health side, but there's so many other pieces of it. And so Libby and I do a lot of what we teach is not only off the science of play, but it's also off of the PERMA model. So it's positive emotions, engagement, relationships, accomplishments, meaning, and health. All of these pieces have to do with well-being. So again, a lot of times we talk about that health piece, that physical piece, but there's so many other things. It's about those positive relationships. It's adding joy into your lives, having meaning, engaging with folks. We were just talking before we jumped on today about how important we miss those personal connections. And we're so excited to be having coffee more and how that helps us. And then having accomplishments and achievement. All of these have to do with well-being. And again, like I said before, you're going to have ups and flows in each one, but it's important to understand that these are all pieces of well-being and really have that whole human piece into it. And so if you take us to the next slide, Libby, I want to show this slide. And I want you to just look at it for a second. And I want you to think about where you're at right now. If I was to ask you what side you sat on right now, would you sit on the side of mental exhaustion? And I share this because I personally was on the mental exhaustion standpoint for a very long time. like I shared before, I was on bed rest for a week. I was struggling really bad with my own mental health. And so I had that negative self-talk. I was living the status quo. I was having that comparison game. And I really was causing myself to have that burnout and exhaustion in my career. But on the flip side, well-being has taught me so many things. And again, well-being is just not that health piece. It is about adding adventure into your life. It's about flexibility, about being resilient, innovative. Think about being innovative with well-being. Think about self-respect, being mindful, and living with purpose. All of that circle has to do with well-being. And so it's so important for us to continue to work towards that space. So whenever you're feeling like, oh no, I'm falling back on that mental exhaustion piece, have a check-in with yourself and remind yourself, like, what do I want for myself? Am I doing that comparison game? Am I starting to have that negative self-talk? And then be able to pull tools from your toolbox to help you. And so Libby is going to be sharing here in a second a little bit about play as well as a tool for us. So Libby, I'm going to hand it over to you now because I've done enough talking, and we'll be talking about play and a tool.
Awesome. I am back. I hope nobody fell asleep during that short breathing exercise because I have done these before, and no joke, sometimes people are actually snoring. That's usually in a longer meditation, not just the breathing. So anyways, I hope you're all still with us. Lisa shared a little bit about her story. So I just wanted to share a little bit more about my story and my experience with mental health and, what kind of got me here as well. Because like Lisa, I experienced burnout, exhaustion, depression, anxiety. I had brain fog and didn't really know what was happening. I couldn't remember things that I could do, or had done in the past. I was, becoming very forgetful. And over time, I realized that there was something going on with my mental health, and that was impacting my physical health as well. So this dis-ease that was going on in the mind actually showed up as physical disease for me. And so I just want you to know that you're not alone, that Roger, you put in the chat that you feel like you're ping-ponging back and forth from the well-being and the mental exhaustion side. And that's very normal. We do. And we can bounce back and forth within moments, within hours, within days, right? And what we're really teaching is to become aware of that. So that's why we talk a little bit about awareness. And then so that you have the tools in order to help you struggle well through those. And so I just want you to know that Lisa and I are both living proof that you can turn your life around. You can equip yourself with the tools to help you feel well. And so I want to feel like this old man. We love this picture of this old man because he reminds me of how I want to show up. Whenever I present, it's just like you see him and he's just ready to rock and take on the world. And it brings so much joy. And this is who I aspire to be. I want to be dancing at this old man's old age. I want to be this joyful and this playful. I don't know, maybe show of hands, how many of you can honestly say you feel like you're showing up like this on a regular basis? Okay, so we have a couple, maybe ping-ponging back and forth a little bit, maybe. Yeah, so there are these moments, right? But how does it feel when you're actually taking time to play and to show up more playfully? And by play, I'm not just talking about fun and games, which I'll get into. I'm talking more about how do we approach life? We, when a struggle or an experience comes towards us that we're judging as negative or bad, how are we actually digesting that? How are we, approaching it head on? Is it in a way of where we can flow through it and be creative problem solvers, or are we kind of struggling through that? So Lisa has told you that all of our curriculum is really based on the science of play. And our idea, our mission is to really help people to embody more of a playful mindset, just like this old man here is. So I feel like we need to name him so that we have a name for him in our presentations. And again, what we mean by play is not like goofing off and fun and games all the time. Again, it's about a mindset. It's about how do we embrace growth opportunities, or these learnings or failures, even sometimes are what we label them as, right? When we receive tough feedback, how are we actually taking that? So anyways, a play is a really important means of reducing stress and just really contributing to our overall well-being. And we don't have time to get into all of the science of that, but we hope today you at least can start to understand and see some of the significant benefits that play can have for you individually, and of course, obviously for your workforce. So again, when we teach about playfulness, we're talking about emotive perception, right? So it's something that can bring us extreme satisfaction. I think we can all agree that when we are experiencing, or when we're in a play mindset, that we just experience life with so much more joy. It's more nourishing, it's more fulfilling. And what happens is that when we're engaged in play, it releases a positive hormonal response. And so we're at peace within our environment. We're more joyful. We're willing to take risks. We're able to be creative problem solvers. And so these are some of the ways in which it shows up. However, on the other end of that, when we're not able to show up playfully about it, we get scared to fail. We start to conform, which over time can bring a lot of uneasiness. It can disconnect us from our purpose and our meaning in life. We have a tendency to focus more on our weaknesses, which who loves to do that, right? It's one thing to develop, but to constantly be thinking about them versus playing to our strengths. And so what happens over time is this leads to dissatisfaction and unhappiness, right? I think we can all validate that. And so as Lisa and I were immersing ourselves into this research, and based on our own experiences of honestly burning out in corporate America, we realized that we were not embodying a playful mindset. And so as we were thinking about, okay, so like, what are the key ingredients that we need to share with people that have helped us embody this playfulness about us? And so what you're seeing here is what we call our pillars of play framework. And so just to kind of dive into this a little bit deeper, tell you a little bit more about what we mean about each of these so you have an understanding. Our mindset plays a significant role in whether or not we're going to show up playfully. And we're talking about a positive mindset here, because the reality is that no one wants to play when they're depressed. Okay, and I'm saying that kind of laughing, but also very seriously as well. And inventor mentality, what do we mean by that? Well, what we mean is that when we play is about creating, right? If you ever watch a child, they're taking things that aren't even toys and making, houses with them and all sorts of different things, boats out of boxes, right? It's about creating and being able to create our reality of how we're perceiving the world around us. And then motivation, we have to be connected to our why or our purpose, one, to be motivated to show up playfully, but also just to be able to be motivated in the work that we're doing. Being open and flexible, why is this important to embodying a playful spirit? Well, when we play, things typically go wrong, right? And so we have to be open and agile and flexible in order to be able to adjust to our environment and the experiences that are happening in front of us. So if we don't embrace change, life is going to be a struggle. So we need to be open-minded. Superpowers is all about focusing on finding ways to intentionally use our strengths. So superpowers are our strengths versus constantly focusing on developing our weaknesses. Because again, it's more fun when we can actually play to our strengths, right? It's more satisfying over time. We get more engaged in things that we're involved in, things that we're doing when we're using our strengths. And then awareness. The biggest thing about awareness is that if you are not aware when you're playing or when you're in a playful mood, when you're trying to embody a playful mindset, you're not going to be reaping the benefits, because most of us are chronic multitaskers in this modern world. We're trying to send emails and listen to podcasts and put together presentations and do all of these other things. And so we're not actually taking in the full benefits of being present and in the moment. So these are our 6 pillars of play. We're not going to be diving into these today, but we wanted you to at least understand a bit more about what do we mean by playfulness, because honestly, people do think it's just fun and games, and we love to have fun and play games, but there's a lot more to this. This is about developing leadership qualities by making it a little bit more playful along the way. And a really easy way to even remember, we don't show this on the slide, but an easy way to remember our pillars of play is the word mimosa. So the first letter of each of these words that we use spells out mimosa. Who doesn't love a good mimosa once in a while, right? So I want to just stop here. Now that you understand a little bit more about playfulness, I'd love to understand, like, within your work environments or even organizations that you're a part of, such as, the chamber here, what are different ways that you encourage playfulness? And let's just say we have in the workplace, but since we're a smaller group, maybe it's playfulness in your life or maybe within work environments that you're a part of. Go ahead, and if you want to put that in the chat. If you're watching this after, just go ahead and think about this and, really see if, is there an opportunity maybe potentially for me to make improvements here if I can't think of anything? Does anybody want to share in the chat? We have some people thinking. I think one of the examples that I've heard employers doing is talking about failures. right? So we have a tendency to want to scold people and, give people negative markings maybe on performance reviews. But one of the beautiful things that an organization can do is to talk about failures and sometimes to celebrate those, right? Because we're always learning from something. We can't actually succeed unless we fail a few times before. And so that's one way that we can just really easily implement a sense of playfulness into the workplace. Anybody else? All right, well, if you think of anything, don't be afraid to bring that up or share that throughout the presentation. So we've obviously talked about, a lot of the science around what we do. And first and foremost, I think we can all admit that success at work doesn't depend on the amount of time we spend on the work. So it's not necessarily the quantity of the time, but it's the quality of the work. And the quality of our work is highly dependent on our well-being. And what we know and what research continues to show us is that play enhances our well-being. And so that's displayed here on this slide of just being able to see what some of the benefits of play in the workplace are. So when we work with organizations, the biggest feedback that we get are that employees are, one, happier. It helps to navigate enormous uncertainty, which so many of us have obviously been experiencing over the last year. It has really helped to assist in the discovery process or innovation. And so you can see here some of the other things that we've seen, other things that research have validated as well. But there's an enormous amount of benefits that this can bring to you personally, but also within your organization. And, I will just say, I feel safe saying this, that play is a basic human need as essential to our well-being as sleep. I think that in this modern world, a lot of us are forgetting to make time for us to nourish ourselves, to do the things that bring us great joy. So when we're low on play, our minds and our bodies are noticing this. And so sometimes at the beginning, we didn't do it today, but sometimes at the beginning of our workshops, we have people get up and do a dance. Sometimes we surprise them at the end with that. And it's a really simple technique that you can do. Just listen to a song for 3 or 4 minutes and it immediately changes your mood. So that's another quick tidbit just for you, just in regards to obviously how to integrate play into your life. So now as we move on, so one of the biggest things that we hear then is okay, so this is great. So you want me to make time for well-being on top of all of the other demands personally and professionally that I'm already managing. So we get this because this is why we teach things that you can do in 5 minutes or less. So this is our mission, is we want to make well-being achievable for anybody that comes to us and is I want to feel better. And you guys are obviously feeling that way by committing yourselves and showing up here. And one of the, this model that I'm showing you now is based on research by BJ Fogg. And his behavior change model essentially says that behavior change happens when a motivation meets an ability and a prompt. So all of these 3 things are converging at the same time. So a lot of times we set really, really I would say stretch goals for ourselves. So Lisa and I are both runners. And so we've both run marathons. And I remember when I ran my first marathon, I was not a couch potato, but I was only running 3 miles max at that time. And so it wasn't I was just going to go out and within 2 weeks be able to run 26 miles, right? So I had to set small attainable goals over time. And one day it might have been run 3 miles, 5 miles, and then obviously you work your way up. But as part of that, I also had to implement other things that I was doing. Eating healthier, making time for stretching, making time for significant amounts of sleep, right? So I had to have these smaller goals that I implemented along the way in order to help me to achieve the larger goal. And so we'll go through the model in a second, but coming back to this right here, that's on the slide here, the behavior change model itself, a lot of times what we see with motivation is that people aren't personally motivated by the goals that they're setting. There are things that they think that they should do. There are things that people want for them, but they don't have a personal intrinsic motivation to do that thing. So you have to figure out what that is for you. Ability to do this behavior change is really just having the skills and the knowledge to be able to do that. Sometimes we're lacking that. We don't even know where to begin. And then we have to have a prompt, which is, I really feel one of the secret ingredients in this research that a lot of us miss. It's a prompt or it's a cue that's going to tee us up. I'm going to use the golf analogy since somebody just made a comment about golf in the chat. Tee us up to actually initiate that change in behavior, for us to take action towards that. So again, this model is about breaking up larger goals into smaller goals. And we're going to call this our tiny habit recipe on the next slide here. But I just want to stop. Are there any questions at this time just about specifically this? Because this is a lot, but I do think that we want to make sure that people understand this before we move on any further to talk about how do we set this model up in our lives. Cool. The other thing about this model too that I just wanted to mention is that BJ's research essentially says that the more tiny habits that we can conquer, then the more motivation that gives us to go after the larger things, right? It feels super good to check off some of those really easy things on our to-do list, right? Like sometimes I write things on the to-do list just so I can check it off and get like an instant boost of gratification, I feel. So this is kind of the same thing, that over time, these small, accomplishing these small little habits just build up. So coming to the next slide here. So this is how we set up a tiny habit for ourselves. We have to have 3 core things, and we like to think of this, we want to remind you of what we call like the ABCs of this. And so the A is an anchor moment. You have to have an anchor moment, which is an existing routine in your current day, something that you do pretty much every day that will cue you or prompt you to take that behavior. So again, this is the A. So an example of that would be starting the coffee, going to bed, getting in your car if you're actually driving into work. Maybe when your alarm goes off, it's when you're getting out of bed, right? These are things that we're doing every day. And then we have to come up with our B, which is our behavior. What is this new behavior that we're trying to achieve? And it needs to be something that you can do in 5 minutes or less. 5 minutes or less again. So this is the key, right? So it could be you want to do 5 stretches. It could be you want to read 1 chapter. It could be saying 5 things that you're grateful for. It's a tiny well-being behavior, something you want to implement into your life. It could be even packing carrots for a snack instead of taking chips to work, right? It could be packing a healthy lunch. It could be drinking a glass of water. So whatever well-being habit you're trying to accomplish, you're going to personalize this year. And then the C is the celebration. This is the best part. We can't forget to celebrate. And why is that? The brain loves to be validated. And this is how we rewire the brain over time. And the celebration does not mean you have to do something major. It could be as simple as saying, yes, I did it, or giving yourself a hug, or just whispering to yourself, I'm really proud of you. Could be dancing on the spot. I do that a lot when I'm by myself or with Lisa. Lisa loves to dance too when we celebrate. And so these are the 3 things that we have to have in order to have a tiny habit recipe to help us help us see behavior change. So you start with an anchor moment, then you add your behavior, and then you have a celebration. So let me show you a couple of examples. These are going to be examples of good tiny habits. After I brush my teeth, I'll do 3 stretches, and then I'm going to celebrate with an Americano. So this is Lisa's. Okay. So she's trying to get a little bit more flexible. She's huge into weight. She's a huge runner. So she brushes her teeth every morning, which is great to know. If anybody was curious, she brushes her teeth, she does 3 stretches, and then she celebrates with her coffee. Okay. So that's her celebration for her. When I climb into bed, I'll say 3, this is mine. When I climb into bed, I'll say 3 things I'm grateful for. And then I give myself a hug, or I just say, today was a great day. I'm really proud of you. And here are examples of things that don't complete the formula. So in the first one, we have before dinner, I will run 26 miles and then eat my delicious home cooked meal. So in this specific example, the reason this is not a tiny habit is because you can't run 26 miles in less than 5 minutes, right? So the behavior is just too large. And then in the last one, we have when I walk through a doorway, I will check in with my positive mindset. And the reason that that's not a tiny habit is what are we missing? The C, right? So we're missing the celebration. So we have to remember to put that in there. So I'm going to go back to the previous slide. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of time now to put together your own tiny habit, something that's personal to you. And then we'd love for you to share that in the chat just so that we can talk about some of these, or if you want to take yourself up on mute, we will have time to obviously talk about these as well if you want. So let me pull this slide back up again. So you have the tiny habit recipe. And so go ahead and write your own tiny habit.
So I'll go. This is, it just kind of popped in my head. So I usually have the, like you said, the checkbox stuff, but then usually there's like the hard work of the day. You've got one or two things that you really, really, really have to move the ball forward on. And I'm a major music head. I love music, like all different kinds, all different genres. And when I check one of the big items off the list, I tell Alexa to play me a song that I think is most aligned with the thing that I just finished.
Yeah. Now, I would say that's good as long as you can get some of those big things done in 5 minutes or less. I think that's a good reward if that's like something that's super motivating for you, for sure. But is then what is the behavior that you're trying to implement or change in your life? Sounds like you might already do this. Maybe there's not consistency in it. So I would just think about some of those things.
It just, maybe I need to listen to more songs during the course of the day to celebrate the littler stuff.
Yeah. Well, so what is something that you really like when you think about your well-being? Is there something that you've thought about, like that you'd like to change about your certain behaviors that you haven't taken initiative towards?
Yeah, there's the annoyances, things that eat at your happiness during the course of the day, trying to fight that back.
Yeah. So maybe I'll just give you an example. And this, I mean, you want to personalize this for you, right? But I just want to talk out loud here. So it might be after I eat my meal, so that could be breakfast, lunch, or dinner, I ask myself, how are you doing? Or how do you feel in this moment? And then you celebrate with saying, I'm really proud of you for checking in, or I'm really proud of you, or we're going to make this a great day, or whatever that might be. So maybe if that's something you want to achieve, maybe it's just creating check-ins throughout the day to ask yourself, how are you doing? Or taking a couple minutes just to do deep breathing like we did would be another like behavior that you could do.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Jason just filling in. Well, okay, we have another one in the chat. So it says, when I get up in the morning, I'll meditate for 10 minutes and then I'll enjoy my coffee. Yeah. So again, it's not 5 minutes, but if you're already at 5 minutes, maybe you want to add time on, right? So again, we teach the tiny habits as like doing things that are like, achievable. So 5 minutes, we know that people can typically find 5 minutes in their day. I'm a meditator though. So like, I super love that one. So yeah, that's great. The important thing is that you're having all three aspects of the tiny habit recipe, the A, B, and the C. So the anchor moment, the behavior, and then the celebration. So our challenge to you now is that once you write your tiny habit formula, we want you to implement it over the next 7 days. Try it out. And if you realize you're not motivated by it, or, maybe it's like, I actually really am super confused on how to actually meditate, you might need to immerse yourself with, read a couple of blogs, or, maybe do a guided meditation. You might realize that, I'm not really personally motivated by this. I'm just doing this because Libby told me I had to, or Libby told me I should check in with myself. So you want to make sure, again, that it's something that's good for you. Awesome. So we talked about a lot today, right? So we talked about, and we all, I think, agreed that we've just been going through a lot over the last year. COVID happening, there were already significant increases in levels of stress. Obviously within the workplace as well, we're feeling a sense of overwhelm. We've talked about what well-being is. We talked about what is this play framework that BluWave Wellbeing has created, right? And we talked about our tiny habits formula. And so I just want to take a moment. Are there any questions about anything that we've covered yet today? Cool. So I know that we really only covered 2 tools. Oh, hold on a second. Let me finish my thought. I know we only covered 2 tools today, but the reality is that it's important to really equip yourself with a toolbox of different things that can help you when you need it. So Lisa and I, everything that we teach, we've personally used, currently using, or maybe just use intermittently. It really just depends. I might wake up one day and be like, meditation is a cure for all of my anxieties today. Other days it might be journaling. Other days it might be going for a walk. And so the important thing is that you really tune in with yourself to check in and just ask yourself, like, what do I really want in this moment? And then be able to pick one of the things out of the toolbox for yourself. Yeah. And then Corey, how much time do you structure in play per day? Well, that's a great question. I'll give my answer, and then Lisa, if you want to add anything, feel free. But play is a way of being. It's not just something that you should just schedule time in. Like, what we want people to really learn is that, like, being mindful is a way of being. It will eventually just become who you are. So, how much time you should schedule into your day to make time for this stuff is really dependent on, like, what is your schedule? I am a certified meditation teacher, so I would say you should be meditating twice a day for 30 minutes, given all of the stresses that we're experiencing on a daily basis. People look at me like a deer in the headlights when I say that, like, Libby, I don't have an hour in the day, right? So you have to do what works for you. So that's why I think starting small is the most important thing that you could do. I don't know, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, can you? Yeah, I would just, hold on, I can't find it. As you can tell, we're in the same room. Okay, you're good. I would just say for me, kind of basically what Libby said, with just kind of like integrating it into your life. In the beginning though, when I was really noticing that I wasn't adding play into my life, I had a lot of reflections at the end of the day. I had to really be intentional about, like, how did I play today? How did I show up? And then over time, I didn't have to do as many reflections because I was integrating it into my life. So Corey, to answer your question, I think in the beginning, check in with yourself at the end of the day and look at, like, how did I play today? How did I show up in group sessions? Like when you're working with coworkers or other people, like, are you adding play into them? Like, are you even helping them with their play? So I would know, like one of my biggest ways to end the day, and this is actually something fun that I do, is I dance with my dog in my kitchen. Like point blank, after a very long day, that has been like my kind of reflection of the day of, like, oh my gosh, like I've done all this play all day, but like that's kind of been my ending. And I know that, yeah, check out my Instagram. I definitely post all about it because it's my play moment. It's my moment to also bring that to my dog as well. And so I share that with you guys only for the point that as much as you want to integrate it into your workday, that's a personal thing for me that makes me reflect on how, and dance is like one of my ways of play. So I would just say that making sure that you're having those self-reflections is really helpful. Perfect. So I'm going to finish us up here. Does anybody have any other questions? No? All right. Well, we wanted to share one other thing with you guys. I'm going to put it into the chat box and then hopefully Roger can share it out too. We are launching a new Play Your Way to Wellbeing series, which is going to be online. It is a 6 self-led module that has videos and worksheets for individuals. It is launching April 15th, but we are sharing the link right now with you guys because it is a value of $100, but we are doing 50% off for people that we are working with and using. So all you have to do is use the code PLAY, and it's valid till April 1st. So I put it into the chat box as well. So what it is it's really going to dive into our 6 pillars of play. So that's what the 6 self-led modules are. So you guys saw it on the screen. We talked about mimosa. So now you know a little bit about it. So now you guys can take it even further to help your own well-being. And the cool thing about a self-led module is that you can pause it, you can work on the worksheets, and you can really reflect on it and go back to it. So we wanted to offer that up to you guys as well, because Libby and I just really want to make sure that people have these tools in their lives to make sure that well-being is achievable for them. Because like Libby said, we've been there. We know what that's like. We're still going through ups and flows, some days. Libby and I aren't perfect, but that's the point that we want to make too, is that, with the ups and flows, it's having the tools in your toolbox that you can pull out in those moments. So I think that's it. Yep. Last slide is, again, feel free to reach out to us. If your company is looking to partner with someone to bring in well-being, like, we are more than welcome or more than happy to help out. Email us, check out our website, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and then we also have LinkedIn as well. So does anybody have any questions before we hand it back over to Roger? How are you guys feeling? Good? Thumbs up? Good? Okay, cool. It's been a quiet group, so we just wanted to make sure. I love it.
As I was considering what you were talking about, it's sort of a palm to the forehead moment when you realize, like, okay, I'm making my celebrations be for big stuff. And because I'm not giving myself that chance to celebrate the steps along the way, you know, that's where that grind that you mentioned in the, you know, when we did your intro, it's, you know, and some people even view the grind as like something to celebrate. You know, that's championed in a lot of society as, you know, I'm a grinder, you know, that's my thing. I'm on the grind. It's hashtag grind. And, you know, this, it's tough. It's tough, the situation that many of us are dealing with. So just the notion of being able to celebrate some of the interim steps along the way to give yourself the grace to know that you should be doing those things. And whether it's dancing with your dog or listening to a song or whatever it is, you know, just knowing that that's what you should be incorporating. To me, if there's a key takeaway, that's it for me. So I hope that some other folks, I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads here on the screen.
Yeah,
So,
I like it.
yeah, so I really appreciate that. You know, I'm certain that as the recording finds its way out into the membership, that there'll be some virtual nodding heads along the way as well. And we just, on behalf of the whole association, I just want to thank the two of you for being willing to spend the time with us. It was really awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. We loved it. So thanks for having us.
All right, well, there you have it, everybody. There's another Wild Wednesday webinar in the books, and we are going to wait for Mr. Tracy's April presentation, where he's going to just absolutely not grind us and figure out ways for us to be successful along the way. So signing off. Thanks so very much, everybody. Until
Nice
next time.
job. Very nice job.
Yeah, awesome presentation.
Have a great day.
Take
Have
care,
a great
all.
day, everybody. Okay.